Hi there, guys, and welcome to my review of the movie Scream. So this is going to be a horror movie review, and straight off the bat, I want to say that the Scream series is probably my guilty pleasure when it comes to different series in the horror genre. I know you've got like different other slasher killers like. Freddy Krueger, Jason Voorhees, but I'm a '90s kid, so my favorite is Scream, and the sort of the cheesy whodunit and the reveals of the killers as well is pretty much everything I'm into as well. So for this review, I'm gonna go through really what I thought of the movie. Just to go through the movie itself. It's been out a little while now, so if you don't like spoilers, then just come back later after you've seen the movie, and I'll just give my sort of two pence then on what I thought the movie wasn't compared to the others, and really where do they want to take the movies going forward now. So Scream 4. This is the first Scream movie not to be directed by Wes Craven. He is the creator of the Scream series, along with Kevin Williamson, the famous horror writer. And Wes Craven also did Nightmare on Elm Street as well, Last House on the Left, and a few other horror movies as well, which are quite impressive. But for this one, this picks up after, I think the Scream 4 was in 2011, so this isn't so much as a direct sequel. It is in a sense, but also they've tried to sort of refocus the track of the series going forward, whereas in the past everything was solely focused on the three survivors from the original movie, which is Sidney Prescott, Gail Weathers, and Dewey Riley, the sheriff. They've really sort of given the emphasis on this movie, like a lot of legacy movies and legacy characters. Now they are there to support, more or less support, the transition from the older cast into the newer cast. And so what we've got here then, just to give you an idea about what this particular film and where this picks up. So this picks up in the present day in 2021 as it was, and effectively there's a new Ghostface killer that's emerged, and after the events of Scream 4, where all three, the Dewey, Gail, and Sydney, do survive, the it picks up a couple of years later, where the killer is now, and this is one thing I really liked about this movie, was that instead of trying to target the survivors of the previous killing spree, they've actually gone and they're looking to target the family members of the original killers from the Scream saga, the first Scream movie. So the two killers in the original one was Billy Loomis and Stu Mocker. So they were both the original killers, and we see in the opening of the movie that we sort of get introduced to the characters quite quickly. It's the first one, I will say, the first sort of opening act of a Scream movie where you don't see people getting killed or the person survives the opening scene. Like famously, Drew Barrymore was killed in the first one, Jada Pinkett Smith in Scream 2, and Liev Schreiber as Cotton Weary in Scream 3 as well then. But in this one we see a character called Tara, and Tara is attacked and she survives the Ghostface, just barely survives the stabbing. We are then introduced to Sam and her friends. So Sam is the older, I believe she's the older sister to Tara. They're not living in the same area, but she does go there to support her in the hospital. And this is where we start to see the introduction to new friends and the new cast as well then. So before I go to that though, we are given effectively a really early reveal in the movie, which I thought was very, very interesting. So Sam, who is the pretty much the main replacement for Sidney Prescott in this new trilogy, is quickly revealed that she's actually the daughter of Billy Loomis, the original killer. So we we then led to believe that she's going to be looking to be attacked as well later on in the movie. What I liked about this movie is that they do give nods as well to some of the previous films, not just with that, and also the original actor. I think they did like a bit of a CGI shot of his face, and that was quite impressive. He came back for all them years. I think it was like, was it 25 years since the first movie? So that's quite impressive to see. But we're given nods to the other Scream movies as well. So the two twins that we meet, they're both Randy from the original trilogy's niece and nephew. They, like Randy, really into their horror movies, into their horror movie lore, and one's geeky as a girl, and the other one's a bit of a sort of really confident jock type guy. Randy's sister as well comes back in this movie, so we hadn't seen her since Scream 3. She was in the original Scream 1, then she was in Scream 3 where she gave the videotape to Dewey, Gale and Sydney. We see Officer Judy Hicks as well from Scream 4 returns in this one. Her son is also part of the sort of the new friendship group, which mirrors the friendship group from the original Scream movie. So Judy Hicks was one of the ones that the sort of the last Scream had you to sort of believe may be the killer. She was very jealous of Gail being Dewey's wife, and because she was working in the police, Judy Hicks wanted to sort of replace Gail in that regard. But she's back in this movie, and she's actually been promoted to sheriff then, instead of Dewey, who's since retired. You've got a thumbnail, and you've seen some nods to Kirby from Scream 4 as well, played by Hayden Panettiere, which is, from what I understand, she's going to be coming back as well in the new movie for Scream 6 or whatever they're going to call it. Scream Again, I think, was the other title that they're going to use. So she's going to be back, and she's a fan favourite from the last movie as well. And also then we see when we have Sidney Prescott coming back into the movie, that Detective Kincaid from Scream 3, the detective who was hunting the killer from Scream 3, is referenced that Sidney and him had a family and had kids since the events of Scream 3 and 4. So once we've introduced to some of the characters, we are introduced then back to the legacy. So the new characters been introduced. Now the legacy characters then are brought back in. So Dewey, and we've seen a lot of this now. Breaking down the sort of the male sort of protagonist in the movie as well now. So he's basically given a bit of a pathetic retirement life, living in a trailer, can't get over the breaking up of his relationship to Gail. Gail Weathers has moved back into the city, where their relationship petered out a little bit. She's back working in the news, so she's on scene back in Woodsboro to cover the new round of the murders and the attacks. Sydney is then called upon after things start getting really ramped up, and that this isn't an isolated one or two. This is again another instance of trying to draw Sydney out, really. But in a sense, it's not really, unlike the other 4 films where the killer was looking to draw Sidney Prescott out because that was the ultimate target. In this movie, what we are seeing is that Sydney's not the actual target, but she is required in the movie to assist Sam and Tara in order to basically, find out who the Ghostface is in this, and kill or arrest them. So that's how we're introduced to the legacy characters back in this movie. The body count in this movie isn't as profound as what I would have thought. I mean, it's 8 people. The body count is 8 people in this movie. I don't think this is the most that there has been in a Scream movie. I think maybe Scream 2 was more. But with this movie, the sort of the types of kills as well is very sort of personal, and more not overly gruesome or anything like you see in Saw, but really sort of personable and sort of gut-wrenching a little bit because of the time invested to build the characters up. And with all the Scream movies, you don't really know, even with the new characters, who's going to survive, who's actually the killer. So it's always a surprise really when somebody that you think might be the killer ends up getting killed himself. Um, but the third act, we see. So the movie does a pretty decent job actually of setting up and giving a lot of meta references to pop culture and the sort of the reboot and the reboots and the cultural reimagining of movies and all this type of these phrases that Hollywood likes to come out with. So they've done a very, very good job of poking fun at that whilst honouring the original Scream and being a firm movie within the continuity of the series. When we get to the third act, I mean, it goes back to the sort of cookie cutter sort of big party at the end of the movie, and then people are getting drawn out individually and then getting picked off by the killers. We are not really introduced to the killers until the very, very end, and it does leave you guessing a little bit, but we do get an idea about the point of the fingers towards Sam's boyfriend Richie, who is I think it's Jack Quaid plays him, and the boyfriend, they always say suspect the boyfriend, and in this one he seems a bit of a pathetic sort of guy who might not particularly be the killer, but he sort of puts on that he doesn't know anything about the Stab movies or the history of Woodsboro or anything like that. We see towards the end of the movie that Sam is very, very much clued up, and it's by this point as well we've also, and what I liked about this film was it had the guts to, unlike it did have the guts to kill off a legacy character as well. We did see that in Star Wars Force Awakens with Han Solo getting killed off, but I mean that was just a fucking shocker. Anyways, I mean the way that he was killed was crap. I mean no payoff really, and just wasting one of the best characters on in that universe. But in this one, I like to think that with Dewey is killed by Ghostface after saving Tara in the hospital, where Ghostface attacks Tara in the hospital again. So he saves Sam, Richie and Tara in the hospital, but Ghostface unfortunately kills Dewey. He makes the sacrifice to let them go and to try and face down the Ghostface. But we see then later on then in the movie with the third act party, people getting drawn out individually and getting killed off. So the Meeks twins are attacked in Stu's home, and this is one of the points as well when Sydney does turn up to the movie, is that they are attacked in the home as well, in Stu's old property. From the original movie, the sort of if you cast your mind back to the stairs, the kitchen scene as well, the scene where Randy's shouting at the TV to turn around as well. But what we see in the third act here at this point now is the reveal of the characters. We see that Richie, the boyfriend, and Amber, one of the best friends of Tara, is actually revealed to be both the killers. So we've got Amber, who is really sort of put across in the movie as somebody who's a bit too cool for school, doesn't really believe, is sort of not really phased about what's going on, doesn't really care too much about the sort of the lore of what they need to do to survive, but she's revealed to be one of the killers. And Richie, like I said just now, always suspect the boyfriend. This one does come back to bite Sam on the backside, in the fact that she couldn't trust him, then she did trust him, and then he turns back on her again then. So I will say this, in that the movie up until the point of the reveals of the killers is pretty good. I would give it a solid 4 out of 5 up until that point. But what I will say is that the reveal of the characters and the ending of the movie, especially the ending and how they kill the killers, it really does leave you wanting more a little bit. And I think that they add bravery in the sense of they've gone and killed off Dewey, a legacy character, but they didn't have the balls then to sort of change the game up completely with the Scream saga, and maybe even let the killer survive and all the the legacy, not sorry, the legacy characters, but the new cast actually being killed off entirely, like pretty much what it was in Scream 4. Now, Amber's and Richie's reasons for staging the entire thing, for attacking Tara and Sam and all the other how can we say all the other survivors of the original killers, as well as people who were in the way, like Officer Judy Hicks, her son, and people connected to that friendship group. I found the reasoning pretty lame, which was that they were on a Reddit, or like a Reddit subgroup, or a 4chan subgroup, or Tumblr or something like that, and they got talking about how they, that basically the new Stab movies, which is like a, the sort of the Scream movies, but in that universe, so it's kind of like a movie within a movie universe, how they got progressively worse with each sequel, and they wanted to bring it back to basics, and it was, I found it very sort of too meta, if that makes sense, too sort of self-reflective, and too much of breaking down that fourth wall, really. And I thought that the reasoning did, I kind of rolled my eyes at it, really, up until the point the movie was excellent, but that really did let me down a little bit. I did like Jack Quaid's Richie. I think he was a pathetic guy, and then when he switched, was pretty good. Amber, I'm not too sure who the actress is who played Amber, but I thought, it was literally two ends of the spectrum, where she was, sort of unexpressive and boring one minute, to bouncing off the room and completely psychotic at the end of the movie. I didn't really get that. It wasn't very controlled, and I wasn't very impressive either, to be honest. It didn't really fill me full of danger, whereas, the original two killers, they do. They sort of impose into sort of like two popular boys in their late teens, who've got a grudge, very sort of Columbine-esque as well. But this one I found is more of a joke than anything. The killers from Scream 4 and the reasoning for those killers in Scream 4, I bought a lot more. I thought the Scream 4 killers, Emma Roberts playing Jill Roberts, was by far and away one of the best killers that they've had in the Scream saga. She wanted to replace Sidney and be the only survivor in that one, and even Rory, I think it's Rory Culkin in Scream 4. The fact that he's a horror geek, and he wanted to sort of he wanted to become part of the mythos of the Scream saga as well himself. And even sort of stabbing the love of his life, which was Kirby, and that as well, I found a lot more compelling than the two killers for this one. So so that did definitely bring down the rating, I will say, in the movie. Now, the movie did very, very well, considering the box office. I think that Scream 4 didn't do so well then, because it was coming off the back of a poor Scream 3, which didn't really perform well. But looking at the sort of audience score and the reviews for Scream 2022, it's actually pretty decent. It's one of the highest ones in the series, if not the highest. So a lot of people did like that. A lot of people did like this type of horror coming back as well. It isn't just all about gore or anything like that at all. So that's excellent score, to be honest, for a Scream movie. And then the other one then was, I'm just checking the box office, so 140 million worldwide, which is pretty decent. And when you compare that then with the box office of the budget 24 million against the box office of 140 million, is pretty impressive. And that is now why they want to go ahead and make a sequel, and to effectively run the series along the path of with Tara and Sam in the new sequel. Like I think I read the other day that Kirby is back in there, Sidney Prescott as well. So the characters are coming back into the sequel. So at the end of the film there, we see that the Meeks twins and Tara are taken away to be looked after in an ambulance. Sam and Sidney thanks Gail and Sidney for their help, and they just effectively the killers are trying to be anonymized in this the ending, which is what Gail says she will do as a promise to Sam, not to give notoriety to the killers. So it'd be interesting to see where they take the saga going forward. Personally, I hope. I was hoping that once they had killed Dewey as the main character, that they would even push the boat out a little bit more, and even like I said previously, go and kill the new cast members, even if they did look to kill the legacy cast members as well. And it was even sort of reference to a little bit in the at the end of the movie by the two killers, Richie and Amber, that they were going to look to make their own sequel, like Billy and Stu said in the first movie, in that the new sort of the new series and the new sequel would be focused following the killers rather than just the survivors of the killing spree. So yeah, I mean, it would have been a ballsy move. We'll see what they do in the next one. It should be due out pretty soon because I don't think they would take long to shoot either. And it's not as if they're going to expand the budget massively. And off the back of this one, they should make a decent a decent return as well. And you know, the sort of the demand for the older horror is definitely up and come back. I'm not too sure what the issue is at the minute with the rights of Friday the 13th, but I know for sure that they're looking to, you know, once that is settled, they will probably make a new series of films. With the Halloween movies, you've had 2 Halloween movies come out recently, which are pretty good, and then the third, Halloween Ends, I think it's either this year or next year it comes out as well. So these are sort of going back to the original roots of the original characters and taking it further with with the legacy characters and new cast members as well. Then, so yeah, this you know, it's quite a bit of an echo going through Hollywood and the trend with horror in particular. But overall, though, I mean, I did enjoy the movie. I love Scream, so I'm biased. I didn't think it was as good as the last one. I will say I do really enjoy Scream 4, and I think it's quite an underrated movie. Particularly in terms of the Scream franchise, I think it's the second best after the original. So with this one, I would put this one as third best in the overall Scream series. So this one I'm going to give a rating of 3 stars out of 5. Like I said, it could have hit it up even more, but I just thought that the killer's reasonings and the ending could have been improved on a lot. But even so, everything up until that point was brave. It was brilliant. It was new, and it was good to watch as well. So if you do like horror, check out Scream, if you can, and let me know what you think as well. And yeah, I should be back then with some more reviews shortly. But please let me know. Give me a comment and let me know what you thought about the video.